Welcome to Around the NFL, presented by Barefoot Wines. Dan Hanzus here with Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. It is time for the Week 13 preview. This is a great week. Whoa. In fact, I feel like everything's been building to this week. In fact, you could say, El Zeuser, you know, you got a root canal on Wednesday, and then hours later developed a stomach virus, contracted from your young son from his school, his first grade class, his kindergarten class. How could you be feeling so good right now? Number one, I'm not feeling good at all. Number two, this keeps me alive. Week 13.
Hope abounds for you. And also, I mean, just a credit to you for being here with us on the show today.
I didn't mean for it to navigate to that conversation,
it's
but
unavoidable.
thank you.
Well, can we get the producers some help here to put a plexiglass window? I think that encasement that Kirk Cousins put himself in, I think that's available a year ago during COVID. Could we put Dan in that?
No, I think you put it well on Tuesday's show, Gregg, when you said, listen, we're family now. We're in too deep. So that's it. We trade viruses. Great.
Kirk Cousins' bod is, like, surprisingly saucy.
I did not sign up to catch a virus, by the way. That's not why I reported to work today.
Hey, family's family, man.
Okay.
So, Week 13, it's a killer. It's awesome. And also, the calendar turned, didn't it, Mike McDaniel?
There is nothing better in professional football than meaningful December and January games. Nothing better.
That's true. I love that guy. Everything he says is like 37% like more entertaining than anyone else saying the same things.
He's got incredible cadence, and you're hanging on every word, and sometimes it's just a normal sentence. It just sounds wonderful.
I love that it's working. Yeah. And I'm saying it as a Jets fan. I love that the Mike McDaniel era is working, that a guy like that can be doing what he's doing. Well, at least until now, because now the Dolphins get challenged, and we're going to get into that.
We will.
He's right, though. It is after you get past week one, which is fun, it's like it's building and building, and so this is the best part. We need a name for this Sunday. Separation Sunday, Statement Sunday. I don't know, but it's easily the best Sunday of the year.
We have hours and hours to figure it out, but for now, let us spin into the week. How exciting. And by the way, the Bills-Patriots, that's a good game too.
Yeah.
Kicking off the week on Thursday night, and you can check out our reaction to that on the Friday Fun Show around the NFL's weekly program that has fan engagement. It's a live stream where you could be involved with the show. Check that out. But let's get into the games. It's time for Sunday Night Football pregame, presented by Barefoot Wine. Just as we pumped up this week, now we're going to talk about the Colts in primetime.
Oh.
How'd that happen?
Well,
Colts at Cowboys. This feels like a bloodbath. That's how I'll tee you up, Gregg.
I think you're right. I'm annoyed. It just shows the power of the Cowboys. Like they will even flex out Patrick Mahomes out of prime time. They got rid of the Broncos and the Chiefs in a couple weeks to put in Dolphins Chargers, which was a nice move.
I'm sorry, Gregg, but weren't the Colts just on Monday Night Football?
Yeah. Well, that's what they do.
What are we doing here?
We also have the Colts
repeats?
on Monday Night Football in 2 or 3 weeks from now against the Cardinals.
And how many primetime?
that's ugly.
And I know the Patriots are actually a pretty good team, but how many Patriots primetime games do we have in a row?
I think there's 4 or
what
3
is
or 4.
I feel like
they've been doing this. They've been doing this for years, though. I don't know what the
funky
I don't get
prime
the
time
formula,
this
though.
I do find the Cowboys a fun team to watch win a blowout, though, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think Dak Prescott's playing out of his mind right now. I love the way he's throwing with anticipation. He's throwing on the move. He's throwing accurately. This has been a good Colts defense, although they weren't great on Monday night against Pittsburgh, I got to say. And so they're a team that's gotten better and better, Dallas, throughout the course of the season. Teams change. We did not expect them to be this dynamic of a team rushing the ball. And a lot of credit goes to their offensive line and their coaching, because there are holes. When Ezekiel Elliott, who just does not have a lot of juice left but has a great instincts, is making big plays, you know they're opening up holes, and Tony Pollard's as effective as anyone. And Michael Gallup showing up last week with some real toughness as a wide receiver too really completes this offense. So I'm enjoying the whole Cowboys experience. I don't hate that they're in primetime, but this is about the 9th best game this week, so it's annoying.
I thought the Gallup development was huge. I know that OBJ is on the radar here big time, and he kind of just fits the whole Cowboys experience, but having Gallup, this is a team we looked at when they traded Amari Cooper. We thought they might be weapons poor to some degree through the air, and it looks completely opposite. I mean, Dak Prescott overcame those early interceptions against the Giants. They're sitting here with 10 days rest, and all I can think about is like Matt Ryan trying to evade the looming figure of Micah Parsons, who could absolutely destroy Matt Ryan in this game. I don't like that situation at all.
Matt Ryan is very difficult to watch at this stage of his career. He cannot move. We know that. He cannot really throw. And that is a tough combination, and you understand why he got benched. You also understand why he returned to the lineup, because the Colts, especially when Irsay was in panic mode when he made his grand move at head coach, he wanted to give them a chance to compete, which he kind of does. But doesn't it feel like every time you watch Matt Ryan, you're watching either the best worst game ever or the worst good game ever by a quarterback? It's just like it's just a toughie.
It's in a tough environment,
It's time
too.
to go.
I mean, because I think that Raiders game, the first, that sort of a fairy tale situation for Jeff Saturday, Matt Ryan, Jonathan Taylor, everything works suddenly, and you're thinking you're Frank Reich, you're looking at this, where was this for me? But that fairy tale has ended, and it's going to end hardcore against the Cowboys.
That was a fairy tale against the number 32 defense in the league, and now, you get that offensive line. They do have Ryan Kelly, their center back at practice, was limited, so that's not the worst thing ever, but he is going to be bum rushed, and I think the kind of new coach bounce. I do think they got a little bit of a new coach bounce. That is a thing. The interim coach comes in, and it's like, oh, we got a little bounce, and that lasted till the very end of that Eagles game, and now the reality is set in that they have to play 6 more games.
And Jonathan Taylor, I know they credited Matt Ryan with that goal line fumble, but my goodness, he's got 4 fumbles this year. He's had some ball security issues. It just feels like a Murphy's Law season for the Colts. Just everything just goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor's 200-yard games all season. I know there's been injury issues.
They're better off losing.
Yeah, what, for the draft pick and
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah, well, I think that was the plan. And then they kind of got fun, and now they're the opposite of fun.
All right, let's move to Monday Night Football. We don't need to dwell on some of these games, unless you had another Cowboys point to make. Greggy, Marc?
No, let's move
to Monday Night Football,
pace.
which is okay. I think the one, if you want to talk about best weeks of the ATN era, if we had a couple bangers on Sunday and Monday, we could actually put this up against. We're going to move through these primetime games to get to the gorgeous football.
So maybe it's the best Sunday daytime slate that we've had.
I mean, we're also probably not forgetting, or just simply forgetting 5 or 6 others that I know we're not trying. We don't want to. We'll advertise this as being the best.
Can you even imagine how long Sunday show is going to be? 3 hours, 6 hours, maybe.
Yeah.
Poor Drew and Christy, Justin.
It's going to be a long night.
Behind the glass. Let's get to it. Buckle it. The Saints, 4-8. They're playing for their lives now. So it's kind of a wounded animal game for the Saints, who have to stay in the race in the NFC South, and that's their only path to the postseason. They got to beat the Bucs. And here's the good news, Marc. I talked about it a little bit on Tuesday, and now I want to hear your thoughts about this. The Saints or any other team in this division can catch the Bucs. You want to know why? I think you know why. The Bucs aren't good. So go ahead, Saints. Go win this game and make the NFC South even sloppier.
I think it helps that the Saints have gotten healthier and bodies back on defense. A defense that historically, recent history has made life very tough for Tom Brady. This has sort of been the kryptonite team. I don't look at this Saints team on that level at all.
Can I just say that angle, and let's see as they look, because the Bucs took care of them in week 2. All this stuff about the Saints, anything about the Saints that was connected to Drew Brees and almost more importantly Sean Payton, nothing about the Saints is what it was anymore.
No, but last year's defense under the current head coach.
Yeah, but with Sean
Brady.
Payton as the head coach leading the team.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. Yeah. I sort of said I think that doesn't really hold a lot of water right now, except the problem is that it's a lot less of a chore to stuff the Bucs offense right now. They're the one of the, speaking of our podcast, I can't really remember too many rushing attacks that are worse. You don't have Tristan Wirfs right now. I think that's a big loss for whenever the line starts to break down around Tom Brady, you get problems. I mean, they've just been simply out of sync, and we talked about this in last week that this Bucs team, we kept waiting for them to round into shape. This is who they are. And I think the thing that they can hang their hat on is that the Saints offense, which seems to me to have no scheme or plan, They're averaging 12.5 points per game since week 9. Alvin Kamara has vanished inside of this thing. And I think Andy Dalton plays pretty well from game to game, but it's not enough.
Yeah. I just cycling back to the Bucs, who I think are at least the more interesting team here to me. And we just saw it, if you're watching this on NFL Network, how many throws we talked about in Atlanta, for instance. Marcus Mariota and Kyle Pitts can't get on the same page. Mm-hmm. Well, Pitts is a young player that's still learning the league in some level. Mariota is a scattershot quarterback. Gregg, why can't Tom Brady and Mike Evans connect on passes like they did the previous 2 years? What has changed in that relationship on the field?
I have no idea. Sometimes it's Mike Evans reading the coverage differently than Brady does. And it's hard to put a fault on that. And other times it's just Tom Brady missing throws. I mean, the go ball that he had in overtime, or was that late fourth quarter? I think it was overtime against Evans. There was two pretty similar passes from Brady in that game. It was just a missed throw by Brady. I don't think he's been as accurate deep down the field. He's still a good quarterback. I read Marc's QB index this week. It was excellent. Brady
what was your favorite part?
Who was it in the middle section? I'm gonna.
It's hard to pick a favorite part, Greg.
There really was a great write-up. It was like in the 20s. Anyways, Brady's
Mike
around.
White at number 23 seems fair. I like that. Nice start for Mike as he moves up the ladder.
I like to jazz him up early when he does like what he just did.
I knew it was Heineke who he said roams as an adventurer. That he throws a handful of heaters. Beyond that, there's something a tad mystical about how his teammates and coaches respond to the fired-up signal caller.
But
we are contractually obligated to ignore QB wins. But would any of this be happening with glass of milk Carson Wentz at the controls? I love that. You had a lot in that statement. Yeah. Marc doesn't like being told that QB wins don't matter. He's putting that in there. He thinks they matter a little bit. That's fair.
I think for some players, they stand out to me. Yeah.
And then you're angering Wes from somewhere mystical right now.
I think Wes would agree on that front.
And then he gives a shot at Wentz in the biggest way he can, which is calling him a guy who drinks glass of milk. There's no lower man than someone that drinks glass of milk.
I know a couple adult men who regularly drink large glasses of milk. What are we doing here?
So you didn't think I had an answer for that, but I did. So my point was Brady's at the right spot at 12. Like, he's a good quarterback, but I think he's not as accurate deep down the field, and that's hurt his connection with Evans. I still think they're the best team in the division. The Bucs, because who they are is like a better than average defense with a average to below average offense, but not terrible, like an okay passing game, and a coach that's terrible in clock management, and that adds up to 5-7. That happens to be the best team in the NFC South. But this game is so big, Dan. I think you hit on it. In terms of what the NFC South is going to look like. I think it's the biggest game in the rest of the season for this division. If the Bucs lose it, they have the 49ers and Bengals next, and I would consider them heavy underdogs. And it's just a wide open mess, kind of like that season where the Panthers won with 7 wins. And I think that if the Bucs can win it, then they're going to keep these other teams at bay.
I have said all along that whoever wins this horrid division with a record like that Panthers team from bygone years, will win a playoff game. They'll host someone mightier, and they will win with a losing record at home in the playoffs. And I think that's what the Bucs will do.
Which will stink, because then you're going to wipe out a team that actually had a good season, and then you got to watch whatever team came out of this division get spanked the next round, and it's just like, oh, we just blew 2 games on a worthless
I didn't say it was a pleasant
division
forecast.
champion.
Around the NFL is brought to you by Verizon, the network America relies on.
All right, welcome back. Yes, it is the Sunday of the year, which makes this the most important draft of the year for our little show. It just so happens that Zeuser is the first overall pick. However, Marc, I want to talk something. I know you got the 3rd overall pick. I want to talk deal with you.
With me, you had a root canal this week.
Yes.
You've endured a stomach bug, and now you're wheeling and dealing. I think that you're showing, again, it's incredibly courageous, your work-life balance here.
I was in that chair for 2.5 hours, and when I was in that chair, I got to thinking.
Okay.
2.5?
Yeah, it was intense.
Got some issues there.
Marc, I have the 1st overall pick, but I'd like to make an offer to you. And I don't want to put any pressure on you.
No, I won't feel pressured.
But I want to see if you would be interested in moving up to number 1 overall. Okay? And and that gives you obviously the pick of any game here at all. The whole thing. And what I want to do here is I'll make an offer to you. Here we go. I wrote this down. That's how serious I am about it. I want to offer you the first overall pick, and I'll throw in my 3rd rounder, 7th overall.
Okay.
I get back your 1st round pick, which is 3rd overall. I also get your 3rd round pick, which is 9th overall. And then a conditional pick in week 14. That will be a 2nd round pick that becomes a first if the Jets win over the Vikings on Sunday.
I feel slightly like Todd Bowles at the podium right now.
Right. Is anyone – and I can't –
What?
I'm in this draft every week, and I have no idea what just happened.
Well, hold on. So I think the money move here is that we're flipping 1st for 3rd. I'd like to know why you're doing that. I seem to, in my mind, have a reason why you might be.
I can guess.
But in general, with the rest of the business, of course I'll accept it. I want the 1st overall pick this week.
Of course I'll accept it. I don't know if Dan snookered you here, but I'd rather have the 3rd and 4th this week. That's better. So he should be giving up value to move back.
This
is like the Tony Mandarich
just
draft.
because you're not involved in the trade doesn't mean you can just start criticizing.
I would rather be 3rd and 4th because there's a big drop-off.
I see where you're coming from to some degree, and I like the idea. I know exactly where I'd go number 1 if I had it, and I am accepting the deal. And I know what you're going to do, I think, with number 3.
Uh-oh, breaking news.
Okay.
What do we got?
Breaking news. We have a blockbuster trade in this stupid fake trade draft thing that ATN does every week. I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, according to my sources, this is big. Dan sends his 1st overall pick plus a 3rd rounder, 7th overall, to Marc for his 1st rounder, 3rd overall, a 3rd round pick, which is 19th overall, and a conditional 3rd rounder in week 14 that, let me get this right, becomes a 2nd with the Jets win over the Vikings on Sunday. This is so stupid, and why am I wasting time with this nonsense?
I mean, he's a little annoyed there that he's talking, but the fact that he had that reporting so quickly, that kind of tells you why he's the rap sheet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I appreciate his dislike for the show in general, but it is real news.
I'm going to step in as the Daniel Jeremiah of this draft analysis here and be like, this is a 5-game draft, a huge drop-off afterwards. Mm-hmm. And so if he's snookering you into kind of only getting one of those 5 games.
He has 2. He has the 1st and 4th pick.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
okay.
Greg, I know.
Are you picking up on Gregg's bitterness that he's not involved in this
I think
trade?
it's because he's not involved.
I think so,
I know
too.
what it's all about, but it makes sense to me.
And of course, there's no secrets here.
You don't want to take the Jets first.
No, and I know I could get some more value, maybe even next week. So anyway, Marc, get us going.
All right. Well,
wow.
Thank
you to Ian for that report.
Well, he did a great job. He did a great job. I know it annoyed him. It probably prevented him from doing something more enjoyable in his life.
It really annoyed Gregg. From the first words that came out of my mouth when we began talking about that.
I don't want to
skin,
I don't want to see Marc get taken advantage of here.
Don't let him do the thing that he thinks
I don't feel taken advantage of too, because I
don't even think he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
He
just wants perfectly comfortable with how this.
Trying to drive the wedge.
That's right, and it's not going to be allowed. I'm going to go Chiefs at Bengals.
Oh, okay.
Great pick.
Because I wouldn't have this if I picked number 3 before. I wouldn't have this game. And so this is a delightful development to me.
So stick that in your pipe and smoke it, Rosenthal.
Smoke it, Greg. So you look at.
He's like, yes, I'll smoke it. Anything.
Just after the show, please. Jamar Chase, you're coming back. Joe Mixon practicing. Look what the Bengals have done. I think it's underrated what they've done without Jamar Chase, without Joe Mixon. And we talked about it a little on Sunday, though, that Joe Burrow have found a way to get Samaje Perine, Travion Williams to combine for 135 yards last week in a big win over the Titans. Guys like Trenton Irwin stepped up. But now you're getting Jamar Chase back and the development of T. Higgins into a truly star wide receiver over the past month beside him. I look at this Bengals offense that outside of that Browns disaster on Monday night, which I view as sort of an inter-division aberration, have been averaging well over 400 yards a game for the past month. And it just seems like we focus on all these the Dolphins, the Niners. The Bengals are going a little overlooked. I feel like that was how it was last year. I think they have the horses to go give Kansas City a run for their money here. And Kansas City, I know last week it was the Rams, but the Rams defense, I thought, slowed Kansas City down a little bit. At least their drives kept ending in the red zone. Do I think that's a week-to-week thing? No, because Patrick Mahomes is the clear front runner for MVP. But I look at this Bengals defense and the way that they –
Jalen Hurts wants a word there, but go on.
Well, I think that's a fair. Yeah. But, I mean, Mahomes, I think, would have to really stumble to not be my MVP at this point.
Go ahead.
But I think the return of DJ Reader has been big for Cincinnati. That defensive line last week made life very tough on the Titans, and their offensive line kept Joe Burrow relatively safe, which is a big development. And I know you got Chris Jones and stuff on the Chiefs coming at you this time around, but I like the Cincinnati, where they're going, where they're trending right now. I think they're not talked about enough.
Love this game. Totally agree with all your points and where they are at. They are a different team right now. And if they can win this game, and I think they can. I picked them to win on game picks. I mean, it's a coin flip, but it's in Cincinnati, and I don't think this would be some big upset. I think they're 1 or 2 point underdogs, which sounds about right. It's close to a coin flip because of the way that they're playing up front. When the Bengals are winning up front against Tennessee, you got to hand it to him. I got to hand it to Zach Taylor. I think it's time to upgrade. You can wear the polo, but how about a nice little sport coat on top of it? You know, let's dress it up. Let's dress it up and go out for dinner with your lady.
I hope this is playing in Cincy's headquarters.
I was going to say, instead of going on with the polo bit, how about a pivot to some damn respect for this man?
I mean, we don't have to go too far. I thought
some GD respect
within the bit. I think the sport coat is adding respect. I'm putting the respect on top of him.
The way you spoke of him in such disparaging tones in September after he went to the Super Bowl. It's the same dude.
Okay,
he's good at this.
I still think, and this was my main point back then, was the main reason why they're so good is their players. They have more talent than
newsflash.
Than Kansas City. But I just mean that you can almost. There's no way for this offense, the way that they're playing, to not be effective. But offensive line-wise, that's the thing that really impresses me, that they have gotten better, I think, over the course of the season. And I look at Kansas City, and what we haven't seen out of them is like these great defensive games. They haven't had too many difficult matchups. I actually think this might be Kansas City's last chance for a loss. Of course, the NFL is unpredictable, but even if Kansas City lost this game, I look at their schedule and I could see them cruising through the end and still getting that 1 seed. But man, would it be impressive for Cincinnati to beat Tennessee and Kansas City in back-to-back weeks, exactly what they did in the playoffs a year ago, and kind of say, like, we're here and we're not going anywhere. It would be a statement.
Let's move on to the second overall pick, Gregg.
Yeah, I'm annoyed. I mean, I am annoyed by your trade because I thought I might get to take Chiefs-Bengals with the second pick.
Oh, there you go.
That's the heart of
and then I thought when Marc got it, he wouldn't take it first overall because I thought he'd take Dolphins 49ers. That's my pick. Those are the two best games, I think, overall on the day. It's close, but those are certainly the best two in the afternoon window, so I want to make sure I get it. I mean, it's just such a fascinating, nerdy matchup to see Kyle Shanahan versus Jimmy Garoppolo. I would put these two teams in the top 6 or 7 most likely teams to win the Super Bowl this year. I think they're there in Dan's power rankings, in that ranking. So to see these first 2 games, a matchup of 4 teams here that can win the Super Bowl, you can't ask for anything better in Week 13. I first want to see if Teron Armstead plays. That's a big X factor. That's the left tackle for the Dolphins. He strained his pec. It sounds like he might be pushing to play this week. When they haven't had him on the field, their numbers have cratered. Even with Tua out there, just the pressure numbers have fallen apart. They will be without their right tackle, Austin Jackson, and the backups that they've put in for those guys, including Brandon Shell, we're not sure what they're going to do, just haven't stood up. And I was a little underwhelmed by the 49ers defense last week in a shutout, relatively just their pass rush, that they didn't win that matchup up front. And
they were very fortunate for that to be zeros.
They didn't get much pressure on Andy Dalton, but I think they'll be able to get some pressure on Tua, even though he gets rid of the ball so quickly, especially if Armstead isn't there. To me, I would like the Dolphins in that game, if it wasn't for that. That, to me, is the thing that worries me the most in terms of Miami going there and maybe getting beaten up front.
Well, our friend Cameron Wolf, who knows tons of people inside the Dolphins, he was told that Armstead has been telling people he's aiming to play. I guess it matters what version of him you get. But when he went out last week, to your point, Tua was sacked like 3 times in a row, and like they pulled him out of the game, not just because they were up by so much, but he was getting killed. So it's like that is a huge kind of Jenga piece, as Dave Damashek would say, for them. There is a strange weather thing here. There's like a 70% chance of rain in this game right now, which I think would change a lot. And the Niners on defense have allowed under 200 yards in 3 of their last 4 games. So I think that matchup, just this defense, I know everyone's going to talk about the offenses, but the Niners, one of the best defenses in the league right now, right there with Dallas and others. How do they put the clamps on Miami? I think that's just the situation week after week. Miami's just overpowering people with their wide receivers. It's like no one's been able to stop them. And if Miami does what it's able to do, is this Niners offense, which I love, I mean, they're so weapons rich, can they hang around with the Dolphins, who have been blowing people out in the first half, game after game?
Yeah, so I think I would be stunned if they continue to do what they do to all these bad teams that they've been beating up on. But even if there's going to be some resistance, because San Francisco, they're a really good team, San Francisco. So, but can Miami still do what they want to do and put San Francisco in a position where if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to score 28 points. And then it's like then you're putting pressure on Jimmy G to be a guy that has to be maybe a little different than the good times Jimmy G when the defense is kicking ass, and then all he has to do is just make a few plays. I'm interested to see what's going on in the backfield for San Francisco, because I'm looking at the practice injury report from Wednesday. CMC did not practice. He's dealing with some knee irritation. We know, of course, Elijah Mitchell is back on IR with an MCL sprain, and that could change the way Kyle Shanahan attacks the Dolphins, and I think it plays into Miami's benefit.
So I just want to watch how the defenses approach each of these offenses, because if you were any other coach, wouldn't you watch that and try to mimic it as much as possible? No one knows Kyle Shanahan's offense better than Mike McDaniel. He was the guy that Kyle Shanahan did not want to leave, that was there forever. And this 49ers team, the defensive personnel, the defensive coaching staff, Mike McDaniel was there for all of it. So don't you want to see what he puts out there as the best way he thinks to stop the Kyle Shanahan offense, and vice versa? I think you have to do it with more man coverage than most teams have thrown at the Dolphins this season. People try to play zone and back up and just not let the big play be. It doesn't matter, because they just will kill you in chunks of 17 to 20, and both of these teams are built to play man coverage. Miami's a little thinner, certainly, in the secondary, but I think you'll see a little bit more of that, and I think you'll see Tua's ability to read the field as quickly tested. He's becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the league at getting to a second, third progression really quickly and getting the ball out, and he's really developed faster than Jimmy Garoppolo did, for instance, in this system. But what can San Francisco do to maybe make him hold the ball a little longer and just gummy up his mental process?
I love what you said, because it really is sort of Shanahan versus Shanahan, like man versus self, because it's almost like Mike McDaniel was like his rib pulled out, like the old Adam and Eve scenario, that he sort of is just a little Shanahan in a way, a miniature Shanahan, and we'll see what happens. And this, Dan, you've been waiting for like the Tua electric Kool-Aid acid test. You've been waiting for this moment. Like, this is the matchup you've been talking about for weeks, where if Tua comes out of this looking like he's had when he's gone 8-0, when he's been a full-time starter from start to finish of games, destroying teams like the Patriots, like making Bill Belichick look like he cannot solve Tua. No one else can. If he can do it to the Niners, then the Tua narrative, I think, changes drastically for the people that are still doubting him.
Yeah, the ceiling has no roof if you light up the San Francisco 49ers, to borrow a Jordanism. But I guess it seems to me, tell me if I'm wrong, that I'm the only one that does have any doubts at this point. Are you guys fully confident that Miami's going to light up whoever they play?
Well, certainly not if they're missing both their starting offensive tackles. But I don't have much doubt that they are one of the best 3 offenses in the league, no matter who they're playing. And whether that's enough to carry them to win a Super Bowl, I don't know. But I put them in the same category as the Chiefs, and I would put the two of those.
That's where I totally disagree because, like, where do they get that type of love when you blow out Houston, Cleveland, Chicago, and Detroit?
But they were blowing them out
because the sign of great offense is
the worst defenses in football.
No one else is doing that though, and I just look at the players and I look how comfortable Tua is.
I don't disagree that there's a lot of talent here and they've put things together, but I think this is desperately needed in the NFL to see the Dolphins against a big-time team.
Well,
That's
they're 4-point underdogs
excited.
here. Who would you? I guess you would take the 49ers.
Yeah, because I'm gonna. I mean, yeah, I think the Niners just because I like them so much on both sides of the ball at home here. If it was in Miami, maybe I would see it more as a field goal game the other way, but. I am open. My mind is open to the idea of the Dolphins, like just boat racing another team, and then all of a sudden we're looking, is this the best team in football? Like that's what can come out of this game potentially.
I think you're right, but also I think are they the Chiefs? Are they the Bills on offense? Well, it's like the Bills and Chiefs. The Chiefs last week couldn't score touchdowns. They're not in,
right, but they have a track record of success over years.
Sure, but I mean, like
I just mean
the
this
Bills
season
are not slump-proof. But right now, like, show me someone that can stop Miami. And also, it's a first-year scheme with a first-year coach. They haven't really gone. I know they were quieter in some games, but like in another world, you'd be giving them mulligans and excuses because all these players are coming together for the first time in this system. Instead, they're electrifying teams.
I like the Dolphins to win. I certainly like them to cover 4 points, but the Armstead thing to me is so big that might flip my pick at the end of the week.
All right, the number 3 overall pick is. Oh, we got a lock. Hang on a second.
Not so fast, Dan.
All right.
Have a lock.
What do we got, Gravedigger?
Gentlemen, I'm back after last week's hiatus. I want to apologize to all my fans out there. I know you missed me last week. The brothers and I had nice plans to get together, put together a nice holiday message to everyone. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Sorry we couldn't do that message for you. Unfortunately, the flu ran right through a couple of my brothers, the same way the Jets ran right through the Bears.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. We locked that one up. Brings us back to 6-6. 3 games back of Gregg, who we know is going to crumble. He's not real competition. He's a paper giant, just like the New York Giants. They are garbage. That's not who we're going with, though, this week. Oh, no. We're going out west. Dolphins go out west to take on the 49ers. I called the Dolphins imposters earlier in the year, right before the Bengals whipped them. We got that lock right, and we're getting this one right. The 49ers roll. Lock it up.
All right,
wow,
so
it's gutsy.
I'm not the only. It is a very gutsy lock. I respect Nick for that, but I'm not the only one in this little wait and see mode here.
No, you're not.
Little wait and see.
There's Nick and there's Nick's ego, 2 separate individuals at this point. I think Nick is.
I couldn't even get on social
fans.
media for the past week without just getting inundated with just where was Nick's video?
No,
where
it was
where is the Wesley brother?
Questioning. Yeah. People felt there was a void in their lives.
Also, Nick noting our strong season that we've had so far in terms of listenership coincides with his being a more active part of the show. Does not believe that's a coincidence.
I agree with Nick. I think that is it. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll continue on with the draft. All right, here we go. Pick 3. Bill Zeuser moves back to number 3 in a blockbuster deal. And yeah, you could figure it out. You could deduce this, that in a loaded week, I thought I could move back and still get Jets at Vikings and pick up some assets down the line. And that's what I'm doing here. So Jets at Vikings, a great showdown here between a rising Jet team that's going to enter Sunday with a butt ton of confidence after they make the QB switch, and then Mike White goes off and has one of the best quarterback games by a Jet in years. Now, just like I was saying with the Dolphins, you got to kind of be wary of who the opponent was before you go all in on the Jets offense now and say, oh, the Jets are fine. They've benched Zach Wilson, and now their offense is good. I'm not there yet, and any Jets fan that is there and is all the way in now, you're just setting yourself up for potential disappointment because there is absolutely a reality where Mike White comes down to earth and the Jets offense comes down to earth in a tough environment on the road against the Vikings. Now, the environment is tough. The Vikings are 9-2, so that's a winning team. They've won every one score game they've played this year, which is screaming for a regression check, but that's who they are this season. But their defense is not very good. I think they're 30th in yardage allowed in the league. I think they are, in general, statistically, depending on what you look at for your numbers, they're kind of a bottom third defense. So it does set up well for Mike White and the Jets to move the ball again. And I think then you get into a situation where, all right, if the Jets do score some points and they're keeping those wide receivers involved, and maybe they have a chance here if that defense can lock up Kirk Cousins. And I'll throw it to you on this one, Mark, because Cousins had a nice game on Thanksgiving, but you had been talking about this. He hasn't had a great season overall. And against the Jet defense with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, I could see him potentially having some issues here with the New York defense playing with a lot of confidence, feeling like they're the underdog going on the road here.
Yeah, I mean, Sauce Gardner is Rookie of the Year material and a runaway, like it's in sort of a runaway candidate.
He could be an all-pro. He is number one, according to Pro Football Focus, in coverage numbers for cornerbacks.
He's allowed 57 receiving yards in man coverage. So for me, the Vikings are kind of not a one-trick pony because they're talented on offense. There's names there. But if you can remove or get Justin Jefferson to 2/3 of his production or half his production, I think you beat the Vikings. And like, to flip it to Mike White real quick, I mean, one thing that I don't think will go away, and I think people are like pointing to the Bills collapse he had last year. It was like he played really well, but then the variable is you go into gets a better defense and you utterly collapse. I don't think that's going to happen to Mike White in general. I just see a quarterback who functions really well in what should be a really quarterback-friendly offense. I mean, he's going to do last week over and over. You played the Bears. That's a disastrous defense. So it's going to be up and down, but it's so much more productive than Zach Wilson. He seems so much more aware, engaged, understanding what he's supposed to do. And the offense just seems to me so much more, they're adequate through the air, and that's all they need to be with him because this defense is truly special. And we're looking at a Vikings defense flip side that made Mac Jones look more than productive on Thanksgiving. It was Mac Jones' best day by far this season. And Mac Jones has been struggling all year. So I think it's a good situation for Mike White to continue to some degree. And I think if you can take out Justin Jefferson, bye-bye Vikings.
Yeah, you look at the rest of the schedule, and I don't think there is some big reckoning for Mike White. I guess the Bills game, they've mostly been good defensively. But other than that, the schedule is very favorable. And I don't necessarily assume he's just a game manager that's going to be a lower third quarterback. He made some really good throws last week. That has nothing to do with the opponent. People always just throw out a game because of the opponent. He made a couple big-time throws, one on the move, some with some heat. He got rid of the ball quickly. That maybe has to do with the opponent because your receivers are open so quickly, but it's decision-making. He got rid of the ball in 2.38 seconds on average time to throw. That's faster than any game of Zach Wilson's career.
Zach Wilson had some games where it was over 3 seconds.
And right. Zach Wilson had that one game against the Bills where he kind of followed the instructions and got rid of the ball as fast as he could. That was close to that. But I think Mike White's going to do it in the regular scheme of the offense where he's still getting to his second and third reads. And this Vikings defense is soft. I mean, it just is. They play soft coverage. They are desperately trying to prevent the big pass, and that they still end up giving it up. There's very little that they excel at. I think they've really missed Dalvin Tomlinson when he's been out of the lineup over the last handful of weeks. They're not very tough. I think that's a mismatch.
So yes, and everything you're saying makes sense about White here. The pessimist it's been beaten into me over the years is because we did see 2 years ago or 1 year ago Mike White have the big game. Everybody get excited. Then the next game he gets hurt immediately. Then the game after that he bombs against a playoff Bills team. So I think part of me is like, ooh, don't get sucked in. But so many things about this game I really do think set up well for the Jets. I feel like they're going to win the game, kiss of death. I think and if they do, it really changes the complexion of the season for them and changes how I think a lot of people will view the Jets. The Vikings, on the flip side, if you beat the Patriots on Thanksgiving night, but if you sandwich that with losses to the Jets and a blowout loss to the Cowboys, they really come down to earth in terms of
they're
how
in a
you see
weird
them.
spot playoff picture-wise because they're going to win this division. They could win it as soon as this week. They're in theory competing for the 1 seed, and I'm sure they want that, but I just don't see them as that sort of team. So they're going to end up somewhere between. And I think one thing that we could have said about the Dolphins, and we can say it about the Jets, and we can say it about the Vikings, this is the first time that these coaching staffs have ever been in these big January games Mike McDaniel's talking about. And the Vikings players have been in them more often, certainly. They have some veterans on this team that have been in big moments. But it is a new experience for a team as a whole. And you don't totally know how the Jets and I would throw the Vikings and their coaching staff and their team, how they're going to respond when they actually get to the important part of the season.
Show me Sunday?
Ooh, I like that.
I think it is.
Show me something.
Dolphins, Jets, Vikings, many other teams we're going to go through here.
We patiently waited on a title, and we came up with one. We didn't rush it.
You know what, Mark? You're up with the 4th pick.
I mean, I can't believe I'm getting this with the 4th pick. This is why this trade worked out for me. I'm getting Titans at Eagles.
There you go.
I misunderstood the whole trade, yeah.
I mean, it's like the next day, it's 1988. You read your USA Today, and they tell you already, like one day after the draft, who won the draft.
I'm regretting my whole strategy. I should have taken this game. You
Sessler
wouldn't have taken another game.
USA Today.
Got it. Got him.
That's how this works. I mean, this is the A.J. Brown revenge game. I think this is sort of a revenge game.
It's also a Sessler revenge game on the criticism from Rosenthal at the top of the show.
That's going to be the entire day.
I blew the draft.
That will be the entire day.
USA Today, Rudy Martzke is writing about it
everywhere.
The reason I think Tennessee has a chance here, and I didn't like seeing like Tannehill hobbling around last week. I just don't think he's healthy. He's one of the toughest quarterbacks in the league. I mean, he's so willing to fire the ball downfield when he's taking a total shot right in his face mask, getting knocked to the ground.
He's a tough dude.
Derrick Henry, though, you can run on the Eagles. It's the one thing you can do. They still don't have Jordan Davis. The Linval Joseph, the Ndamukong Suh thing, I think it's helped them. But it's not completely solved the fact that the Eagles can be run on. And I think this Titans offense is really relatively so basic that it really comes down to what you get out of Derrick Henry in this game. And he has been, in December and January, an unstoppable force for years in a row. And the Eagles right now, to me, that's your vulnerability. And can you stop the Eagles in reverse? I trust the Titans. I mean, they were out-physical by the Bengals last week. We talked about that. They've got to hate how that game went down. But they have found a way. They are a matchup defense. We've seen this week after week, and I cannot wait to see what Mike Vrabel does against A.J. Brown, but against this all very versatile Eagles offense that last week put it on Green Bay. How exhausted and winded was that Packers defense by the end of that game? They were physically and spiritually broken by what the Eagles did on the ground, so I love this matchup.
I'm with you. I wonder if the Titans are a little humbled by that game where they're not expecting the Bengals to come in and push them around a little and stuff them on the ground. I'm with you that the Titans defense is going to throw something different at Jalen Hurts, and I think at least minimize their running attack and somehow force Philadelphia to win throwing the ball and from the pocket. But good luck. It's like Hurts has been very aggressive, and I've seen some numbers and some tape watchers pointing out that, Hurts isn't a top 5 quarterback throwing the ball this year, but he's like top 10 to 12, along with being one of the most efficient runners in the league and a great decision maker about when to run and when not to. Like Tua, I think he's very good with the ball handling, but obviously, unlike Tua, he brings that added element as a physical runner, and the Packers were almost begging him to run. I think the Titans will prevent that from happening and make him win throwing it to A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Without Goddard, I don't think they're quite as dynamic a passing team. And this game, to your point, Mark, I think could be a little more defensive on both sides, really, than the last few Eagles.
I feel like people that are picking on Hurts as not a complete passer because he's such a good threat on the ground are not watching Jalen Hurts' games. Right. I just think he's absolutely grown as a passer, and he's more than adequate, and he's had games where his accuracy has been incredible.
One thing that's not getting a lot of attention is bringing Gravedigger on this one. Derrick Henry's in a little bit of a slump. rushing the football. His last 3 games, he's averaged 2.8, 3.1, and 2.2 yards per attempt. I know he's done some damage through the air in the receiving game. Gregg, would you put anything into that? Is it matchup based? Is it just one of those things in a long season, or is there something we need to know?
A little bit of all of that. Ben Jones has missed the last 2 games, the starting center and the Titans' clear best offensive lineman. He's back at practice now, so it looks like he's going to play in this game. And also, teams have been defending the Titans a little bit differently over the past few weeks. They've been breaking out these 5-1 and 6-1 defensive fronts.
Look at you.
That basically fill all the gaps. The Titans love the outside zone running scheme where you have the option to go outside, cut up inside, or cut it back to the backside. And with these 6-1 defensive line fronts, it's like plugging up all the gaps and not allowing the Titans linemen to climb to the second level. So Tennessee's got to figure something out. They either got to run a little bit more power, they got to execute these blocks that are tough to execute. But, I mean, they're obviously aware that teams are going to start playing them this way, and we'll see if
find a way to open up the passing game in a way that causes defenses to have to react to that.
Treylon Burks the last couple of weeks, and Tannehill talked about how his preparation has been such a big difference maker. On the offseason, it was like, is this guy plugged in or not?
Yeah.
He's been growing.
And the NFL Films, they release those like mic'd up segments from every game every week, and they had a moment between Vrabel and Treylon Burks after Burks recovered the fumble, where Burks was like, I'm sorry, Coach, that was my man that I missed my block. He's the one that punched the ball out of Derrick Henry's hands. And Vrabel's like, but what'd you do after that? You ran down, you hustled, you dove on the ball, and he scored his first NFL touchdown recovering a fumble in the end zone. I am not necessarily confident, but I am going to lock up the Titans in this game.
Look at that. That is gutsy.
This is called value. See, every other lockable game on this slate.
Sean Kelly with a double thumbs down behind you, the Eagles fan.
Not a fan of it.
Every other game on this slate would be worth 1 potential lock win for me, but this one is worth 1.5.
That's true.
So I'd be stupid not to
He gets his half back from that shameful.
I don't remember this going by any sort of this was a renegade Gregg scenario.
Just because you guys have some fugazi bond does not mean that Gregg carries any extra weight.
I think he's trying to make up for the shame of that lock, and I think that's a smart move.
All right,
he has been shamed.
You don't get any extra credit, but you earn our respect by getting behind your team. I didn't have the guts to do it. You did, and I respect
as a
you for
decent-sized
that.
underdog, which doesn't make sense to me. I think this is a coin flip game. I think that's too many.
Philly too.
Too many points. 5.5 points. I think one of their problems, though, Gravedigger, dealing with those heavy fronts, is that Ryan Tannehill isn't as mobile coming off of the ankle injury. I thought he actually looked good when he did move last week, but they haven't had him rolling out as much. His legs are one of the reasons why they're one of the great red zone teams of all time over the last 3 years with Tannehill. That's where he likes to run. So I think you need to work in more.
They've struggled in the red zone. They were 0 for 3 against the Bengals.
Right.
I mean, you convert one of those 3 trips into a touchdown, that's a totally different game.
They need him to run. I do think they got to feel good. They finally have the cornerback group that they've wanted all season, healthy and rolling a little bit, the Titans. So they have Fulton, they have McCreary, they have Elijah Molden. That's a good young group. You have a good safety combo. I think they'll feel pretty confident that they can win some of those one-on-one matchups and dare the Eagles to try to beat them.
Well, let's be real, though. If you fall in back-to-back weeks to the Bengals and Eagles, you're a lower-tier operation.
You're more of a middle tier.
I don't think so.
You're a 7 and 5 tier.
I mean, no, I think you need to win one of these games.
And you know what? I like your choice here because I feel like if we've learned anything from Tennessee over the last couple of years, this feels like a game they go and get after they couldn't get the Cincinnati game. And in general, I'm just looking ahead. The AFC playoffs are going to be banging this year. I mean, every team.
Maybe even better than this week's games.
Let's not go crazy.
Oh, okay.
And tune in on Sunday to the podcast to get the full rundown. But all of these teams are really fun to watch. I don't think we're going to have any – like the NFC, look out because you're going to have like –
snooze fest.
Some snore NFC South team in there, and there's going to be, but in the AFC,
that's the yin and the yang of the NFL season, Dan.
By the way, it's D. Henber.
All right. Well, oh, no.
D. Henber.
Why are we? What
is D. Henber?
I'm not even going to.
Derrick Henry's numbers in December are outlandish compared to his numbers in all other months.
We mentioned that.
And why would? Yeah.
We previously mentioned
Titans fans call it D. Henber, and we need to make it a national thing.
Why are you guys so bad at naming things?
Terrible branding. terrible branding by
Whatever.
the Titans fan base.
Just wanted it to be on the podcast.
Wait, so you had the tickle
that will be
monsters.
the social clip from the show too. The lone social clip that goes out will be this.
It'll be from my personal account, but yes, I will post.
Remember the tragedy that was the Tennessee tickle monsters?
Yeah, it was more than a tragedy. I think it rages on still.
I think it hurt Justin's career, to be quite honest. And now we have D. Hember
standing by it all.
Hurt his career.
All right, let's move on. Greggy.
I'm struggling here.
I
messed this up. I'm getting a D- on the draft. Len Pasquarelli's writing articles about how I didn't get the card in on time.
You had issues,
Because I should have taken Titans-Eagles, and you wouldn't have taken the late game, and I would have had both of the great games. But I'm taking Giants-Commanders here. That's the other game between winning teams.
That's just
in the morning. It's in the morning. It's not good at all. You know what? When they didn't get that card in, the Vikings. And they messed it up.
Yeah.
You know who they got? Kevin Williams, I think, who might have his number retired in Minnesota. He had such a good career. So that's what this game is going to be. We know it's coming down to the final few minutes because every Commanders game does. It used to be what happened in every Giants game until they started playing the team of ATL and a rolling Cowboys team. But I think it will come down to the end. It's a monster game for the Giants because they're getting healthier here. They're at home. And I think everyone in New York in the media has been panicking, being like, suddenly they might not make the playoffs and things are falling apart. It's like, calm down. They lost 2 to fall to 7-4. You lose to the Commanders at home, then I think you've got some real problems. The Commanders are a better overall team, though. Their run defense and their front line on defense is the best unit in this game. They have more talent offensively than the Giants. So if our guy, Brian Daboll, wants to win Coach of the Year. People like to give out these awards so early. He's got to win a game like this where, look, you don't have to win 12 games, but you got to at least beat the Commanders at home, stop the bleeding. If they lose this game, I think it becomes very realistic that the Giants fall right out of the playoffs.
I don't like this matchup for New York. Saquon Barkley has not been Saquon Barkley for 2 weeks in a row, and you look through the course of this season, the one thing that Washington's done consistently is shut down the run. They allowed 72 yards to the Eagles in Week 3. They played Philly again on that Monday night game, that incredible victory. Just 94 yards. They've done it to the Vikings. They did it to the Packers. They've done it to the Cowboys as well. And last week, they did it to the Falcons. So
Not really, though.
No,
the Falcons actually look pretty good.
I'm looking at the numbers, so the Falcons were better. But that said, this is their strength. I mean, I think if you can take away not only Saquon Barkley, but you remove the threat of Daniel Jones on the ground, what do the Giants have? Because I thought last week when the Cowboys started to turn on the Jets against New York and you put Daniel Jones in a situation where you need to make a couple throws, it didn't happen.
Wait, so you're out on the Giants now, it sounds like.
I'm just saying they're vulnerable in this matchup.
Oh, they're vulnerable.
These are two teams that I think no one wants to believe in, and I kind of get it, but I think that Washington carries certain traits. I do like Heineke. I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers 2.0, but I think he's changed the energy on that offense. To me, that stuff matters.
I think Brian Robinson's emergence is more important than Heineke, just because Heineke, I think, is what he is. Heineke is a up-and-down type quarterback who is just easier to root for than Carson Wentz. I feel like that's the biggest difference in a lot of ways between those guys.
Isn't that making football more enjoyable if you're Washington?
I'm just not going to go crazy about, like,
their numbers
Taylor
are worse.
Also,
I mean, they're one of the worst offenses in the league.
But there are no doubt about it. One of the most run-heavy offenses. They are the most run-heavy offense in the league since Heineke's been in there.
So there you go. And that's what I mean is, like, if this is who Brian Robinson is going to be going forward, if he could stay healthy, that's a huge benefit for Washington. And I think sometimes I was thinking about this earlier in the week. Are we now seeing the Giants and Commanders basically like switching their season identities, where we're going to see Washington continue to just win games in close fashion by just being physical and just making the play when it needs to be made? Because I do think Washington is a team that is better, even though their record isn't as good, I think they're in better position here to take that wild card spot than the Giants. And
they're only half a game back, so they'll be better after this week.
They have a bye, and then they play the Giants again. So I want to see what these teams show each other this week.
This is a good Show Me Sunday game, for both teams, because I think a lot of people are expecting the Giants to fold now. And a lot of people now I think Washington is getting some positive pop, like, hey, look at the Commanders. Now, if you get spanked by the Giants here, and the Giants take a commanding lead in the playoff race, then it's going to be a different vibe. But yeah, I would like Washington to keep it going here. Welcome to Around the NFL, presented by Barefoot Wines. We are going to drive all the way to the desert, Gregg's future hometown, where the Las Vegas Raiders will meet the Los Angeles Chargers. Interesting game. A show-me game for a couple teams. Speaking of the desert, they have this game completely even. Coin flip. And I think that's accurate because you have a Chargers team who I want to buy into. I want to believe in. I haven't been able to do it all year, but the way they won that game in Arizona, that is fun. That's like, maybe that's a light switch type game. And I don't know, is Mike Williams, is he just off the grid again? Like, what is his situation?
He's not practicing, and that's not a good
sign.
Right.
More time with him, I think.
We're here in the same place with Williams, but you got Keenan Allen back, and Justin Herbert is looking more and more like Justin Herbert every week. And then you have the Raiders. And I look at the Raiders' upcoming schedule, and I say, man, if they – I'm not saying anything here. I ain't saying nothing here. But what I am saying is if the Raiders beat the Chargers –
You love the Raiders.
The Raiders have a chance to get into this playoff race.
What?
Yes, they absolutely can. If they beat the Chargers, they're 5-7. Then they get the Rams, they're 6-7. Then they're home against the Patriots.
They're 6-8.
Doable. They're 7-7. At Pittsburgh, 8-7, and then San Francisco, KC.
I mean, that's where the journey ends.
But all I'm saying is they will be.
You think you can get to 8-7?
They will be in the hunt category, but they have to win this game. And I don't know if this is a team that has the ability to grasp the moment. It feels like everything about them doesn't grasp the moment, but they certainly have grasped the moment in the last 2 overtimes.
I mean, I feel like you spun some fiction with this, like rattling off win after win.
No, they're all facts. Well, the predictions are
I see a team that is also totally capable of like a personal explosion in the wrong way and completely the floor totally falling out. I think right now, Justin Herbert last week, because it was the 2 previous games against the Chiefs and the Niners, 2 chances to win in the final moments, 2 Justin Herbert interceptions. Last week was just a breakthrough effort for me. I know they've been saying he's healthy. So he actually looked healthy to me last week. It helps to get Keenan Allen back, but it was more to me just about the play of Justin Herbert. And to me, that is the difference in this game. If you can keep Max Crosby at bay, and their line's got some issues.
Nobody can do that, though.
No, he's been incredible.
He should be the defensive player of the year, by the way. He has been unbelievable.
Yeah, I think he's got to be right in the mix there, top 3.
No,
I'm giving it to Parsons.
I mean, Micah Parsons.
But I think those would be my 2 edge rushers.
Let's compare
the
some
All-Pro team.
Data points.
It's the All-Pro team. I think those
Myles
might
Garrett's
be your 2.
in the mix.
He's in the mix.
Get Myles Garrett out of here.
Well, I know, but you would never vote for Myles Garrett. So
why not?
I don't know why. I just know you wouldn't.
Well, I feel like all I hear on this podcast all year long. Oh, the Browns, what a disgrace! Their defense is fire everybody.
Well,
and now we're going to give the defensive player of the year.
He's played great, but Parsons to me has been on another level.
Just said he's in the mix.
This offensive line.
He's gone.
You mentioned they have issues. Corey Linsley's the biggest one. So when Corey Linsley, their center, has not been on the field this year, they have not been nearly as good. And you could see it in that Arizona game. Granted, they weren't prepared because he got hurt during the game. It was another concussion. You're seeing some of these offensive linemen have multiple concussions. Darisaw was one. Linsley is another. Trey Pipkins is also out of practice, who has been in and out, but at least would be playing for them at tackle. So then you're on your 3rd tackle. It's concerning, their injury situation. Herbert is the difference. I agree with you. They're putting so much on his plate. I think he's played really well since the bye. I think they're putting like a Drew Brees, Tom Brady in their primes level of responsibility on Herbert, where he's just reading everything. He's 2nd in the league in attempts. He's just throwing the ball, despite them having their bye week, and they're asking so much. And I think that can work against the Raiders. I have a really hard time picking this game, though. Like, I don't know. All these injuries worry me about the Chargers and make me lean slightly Las Vegas.
I don't know.
If Linsley's out and Williams is out, Derwin James didn't practice. I don't think that's a serious problem, but that's a little.
Josh Jacobs is also limited in practice with a calf, so that's something to keep an eye on after his 300-yard game.
The Raiders could also potentially get back Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, who were designated to return off IR, but they have 2 games here with a Thursday night game coming up in 5 days. So that's uncertain.
If Jacobs is healthy, the Chargers right now are allowing 5.6 yards per carry, 14 all-purpose touchdowns in 11 games. They are getting gashed on the ground week after week, so that sets up really well. But on the flip side, and I really like Patrick Graham and what he's done in the past, but the Raiders' pass defense is a disaster. They're allowing a league-high 72 completion percentage and the 4th most yards per attempt in the league. And Herbert's yards per attempt have been down.
It's because he throws 45 times a game, and they're asking DeAndre Carter to win on the outside, and he's kind of doing it, which is amazing.
It's definitely an environment, but I mean, this is a tasty matchup for Herbert.
You're being a little bit the defensive Justin Herbert media guy right now. Every time anything slightly critical comes up, but this and that and this and that.
Well, he's just a social media quarterback.
I mean, I think he's played well. I think he's been a top 10 quarterback this year. But I think their running game is their short passing game, and that'll change how you do it. I mean, they didn't even try to run last week. They're just throwing these little screens and
who'd you pick?
To Eckler. Online, I took the Raiders, but sometimes I change them late in the week. I took the Raiders in this game.
How about you?
The defenses are equally
Chargers.
bad.
Yeah. Although, you know what? Like, when I call the Raiders like a high variance, you have no idea what they're going to do. Well, that's the Chargers.
I think 31-30 is a Raiders game, another close game.
Part of the reason I took the Raiders was like they'd lost in week 1, and I was like, well, these teams just feel like they should split.
All right, up next in the draft is Marc Sessler, who receives the pick from the old Zeuser in that blockbuster trade, in case you're just tuning in.
Yeah, that's the 8th time Dan's gone third person there during our episode. I'm going to go Cleveland and Houston. It's obviously, I think, a little bit, as sort of an ex-Browns fan, I want to just see what this looks like, but I got to say, like, I really will
Now
miss,
you're back to being an ex-Browns fan.
Well, I really will miss Jacoby Brissett. And I know we talked about him a little bit on Sunday night, but I don't know what more you could have asked him to do. I think he's, like, literally, like, we talked about him being right in the middle of the league quarterback-wise, and he earned that. He did it through his play. It's his best play of his career. And I honestly think, like, if you're Deshaun Watson, we're going to get Deshaun Watson now against Houston, which is a real weird opening chapter for that whole thing. I think you're challenged to go and outplay Brissett, but also coming out of last week, like, those players love Brissett so much. And Kevin Stefanski said he's never been around a better teammate in all his time in football. And so you're now going to plug in Deshaun Watson, who I think is under a fair amount of pressure to an offense that's been good to equal what Jacoby Brissett has done. Out of the gate.
And doesn't sound that confident. When he mentioned how Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson that is, at his media appearance, and we can get to that, different aspects of it, but just in terms of his on-field play, he mentioned how they're top 5 in all the numbers. He certainly wasn't puffing his chest out. We haven't heard a lot of reports that he's looked great at practice, whether that was in the offseason or now. No one's saying those reports. You kind of heard some whispers that it's been okay, and he certainly struggled in that preseason match. I hated how he handled the off-field sexual assault allegations part of his press conference, and we can get to that. But I thought it was interesting, too, how he handled the on-field one, not sounding like he's expecting to hit the ground running. It should help that he's playing one of the worst defense in the league, and you can just hand the ball off to Nick Chubb. But I think there's an open question whether he'll be better over the last 6 games than Jacoby Brissett was.
Yep.
I don't think it matters at all. And if there's a faction of the Browns locker room that is having an issue with Jake Brisket losing his job, well, get him out of the building.
Well,
because that's just the way it is.
I don't think there's an issue.
This is Deshaun Watson's team, whether we like it or anybody likes it or not. And whether he plays better than Jacoby Brissett hitting the ground or for the balance of the season doesn't matter, because this is a big picture move by the Browns that they made, as we all know. And Brissett, I think, was he was good, he was steady, but he threw 12 touchdowns in 11 games. It wasn't like he's replacing 1984 Dan Marino here. I would not be surprised if Watson does struggle. He literally, and I know this has been off-stated, but we'll say it one more time. When he takes the field on Sunday, it will be his first game action in 700 days. And he just has been out of the league for 2 years, and that is going, I think, to show itself. So if Browns fans are going to get upset that the offense takes a step down right now, well, that's just part of, I think, the suspension and everything that plays into it. And they're going to eat it. They're going to swallow that sadness, because it's not about this season with Deshaun Watson. It's about going forward.
It's not, and it probably even helps Cleveland a little bit. I know they'd like to be in the playoff race, but the record isn't flipped. That you're right. Like Brissett playing pretty well.
I agree with that.
They still are in a situation where the season is essentially lost, and so you're not going to have quarterback number 2 come in and then you fall out of the playoff race, because I think that would be a rather volatile reaction.
There would be anger or frustration in the fan base. If you're right, if they were in the mix right now and then he struggled, but I think he's going to have time to get his feet wet.
The good thing is you're playing a team that over the last 2 first halves were out yardage 533 yards to 37. It's hard to do that. We could gain 37 yards in 2 NFL halves.
I hate that they even broke Dameon Pierce, the guy that we were into this season. I think he's averaging about 10 yards a game the last couple weeks.
It's hard to see what the plan is with Houston. I don't.
But the fact that it's in Houston, the matchup obviously is fantastic for Watson and the Browns. The fact that it's in Houston for him personally, I think adds to something I've thought about and was exacerbated watching his press conference. He showed zero contrition again. He won't talk about anything other than football. He doesn't sound overly comfortable just with where he is, and he just sounds like a guy who's kind of living a lie. That he at no point has moved on, and everyone says, okay, we want to move on from this and we want to talk about football, but he doesn't sound like a young man that or a man that has dealt with it whatsoever. He doesn't sound like a leader that you can get behind. And the fact that it's in Houston against the team that had to give up a lot of money to settle all these cases with the women that accused Deshaun Watson of sexual assault, the same women that ultimately cost him 2 years of his career because of his actions, and that he had to settle all this money. They're going to be in the stadium there. The team who they said they didn't admit responsibility, but they also did pay the women quickly when they sued the team. The fact that it's all in Houston, how could that not have an effect? And how could him in where he is in the sports landscape, which is going to be enemy number 1 whenever he's on the road. He obviously knows that hard questions are coming from the media, and he pushed them off today, but I don't think that's necessarily going to end unless he ever does address it or ever shows contrition. I think that's just that plays into everything. He's a human being, and I think that's it's going to make it all even more difficult, I feel.
Everything you're saying makes sense to me. All right, we are back. It is time now for Greggy. The great Greggy. Having a tough draft.
I'm having a great draft.
No, you're not, Greg.
I'm having a fine time. I'm taking the Jaguars.
Speaking of blinders.
And the Lions.
Yes.
It's the team of around THL, because I've had the Lions every single week. I really have had the Lions almost every week.
This is you're having a career-altering draft in a negative way, but this was a good pick here.
Good value pick.
It was all I could take. Fun game. Annoyed personally that these two teams are playing each other, because I feel like they're the two teams that are better than the record at 4-7. I'd throw the Browns in there too, by the way. But these are the two teams that are playing their best football right now.
But Greg, that's why it's a great show.
No, absolutely, and it makes it more interesting. But I want both of these teams to win this week. I have a fondness for this Jaguars team now with Trevor Lawrence showing me something and playing very clean football week after week, making really good decisions, being really accurate. But I have even more fondness for this Lions defense. They've changed. Their numbers since the bye are average, and that's something. And they're flying around the field, and that's something. That's coaching. They were such an absolute sieve for 6 weeks that all they needed was an average defense, and suddenly you're in every game, and maybe Jared Goff's not going to close them out when you're playing good opponents like the Bills, but I think they'll close out the Jaguars, because I think this Jaguars defense is quietly a little disappointing. You can certainly throw on them, and I think the Lions go get another win.
There you go, Greggy.
What are you clapping about?
Because the Lions, we get behind the Lions, the team around the NFL. How about you? How about you, Sessler?
I told you that they won me over in that Bills game. I didn't like the way it ended, but they absolutely did. But you know what?
Now be honest.
It took a 3-game losing streak and then a great performance on Thanksgiving to win over.
I know, but I said all along, I will allow the Detroit Lions to come to me. I'm not going to fabricate or cook up enthusiasm when it wasn't there. But now that it's there, I absolutely enjoy them.
Speaking of egotists, they come to you?
Yes.
Wow.
What other egotist were we talking about
your head?
The show?
It's like Amon-Ra St. Brown, come on over. I'll have some time around 3:45 to 4, but just make sure you get there on time.
I'm the great Marc Sessler. Come to me so I can adore you.
This is absurd. If this is actually playing on NFL Network right now, the last 10, 12 seconds of the show, I will be stunned and annoyed at the people behind the glass. But I will tell you this. I am equally excited about what Trevor Lawrence has done. Since Week 9, trails only Tua in passer rating, in essentially touchdown-interception ratio. We waited for this, and I thought, if anything, we're patient with Trevor Lawrence. But now we are getting it. And I think these are two really – you could look at both coaches and say that – Campbell has changed the Lions. They're starting to play in his image. And Doug Peterson has flipped the switch on Trevor Lawrence at this point. I mean, what we're getting over the last 3 or 4 weeks, that this is who he is and continues to grow. You've got a star quarterback with the Jaguars have essentially never had, unless you want to call Mark Brunell that.
All right, let's move on. I will take Ig. All right, we ran out. It's okay. I'll grab Packers at Bears.
It is getting grisly.
Yeah, it's okay though. We have so much good football. Yeah. I don't mind taking a couple dog games just to keep an eye on where all the great football is going on screen 3.
Sure.
I max out at screen 3.
You want to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have screen. This is what's gonna look like. A little peek behind the curtain, everybody. Daddy's gonna have Jets Vikings on.
You're the daddy in this case, and the listeners are your children.
You bet your ass.
Another
on daddy.
third-person nickname.
And then you're gonna have
my daddy.
You're gonna. You got the Packers at Bears on the secondary screen. Mm-hmm. I will be professionally keeping an eye on that.
All right.
And then old Papa Bear is going to have I looked at Gregg as I said that, and his eyes kind of lit up.
You're also Papa Bear.
Well, you did seem to push back when I said you're not my daddy, as if you're saying, well, actually, you don't know, but I am your daddy.
Right.
I'm your father.
One day you'll be like, you were right. You were my daddy the whole time.
Wait, you're daddy and Papa Bear?
Sure.
At the same time?
Yeah.
Zaddy, stop it.
Frags, always welcome on the show. And then I'll watch I'll watch Titans-Eagles, too. That will be on the third screen. This is a great Sunday.
I mean, that's my game.
Right. That's just the fun. Keep an eye on it. Boom, boom, boom.
It's a little
you need to ask my permission to watch my game.
May I have permission, Zaddy?
Since you just called me that, yes.
It's getting weird. Packers at Bears from Soldier Field. I am working under the assumption that Aaron Rodgers will play, but who knows? Rodgers obviously has the rib issue. Aaron, you got to give him this. He knows how to stay in the conversation. He knows the answers to give that will keep him in the headlines. So on the McAfee show, he said that the scans came back good and he intends to play, blah, blah, blah. Then the reporters asked him about what are your thoughts about the idea of Jordan Love getting a look if you guys are out of contention. And he said he was, open-minded, I guess, if they were to come to him with that, which I don't know if I believe. But anyway, it was made for another headline. If Rodgers doesn't play, this game is actually a little bit more interesting because of Jordan Love. Getting a full start against a terrible. There's just no.
Imagine that comment being ushered in August.
Yeah, right. There's no meat on the bone with Chicago if Justin Fields isn't playing, and I don't know what his status is. But the Bears have a bye next week. It doesn't make any sense to me to play him this week, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, if Rodgers plays, I'm locking up the Packers because I think it sets up ideally for a Rodgers 4-touchdown performance and exactly how he wants it in his mind. And if he doesn't play, I'll probably move off the lock. But we'll see. We'll see. That's where we're at in this game.
I also am locking up the Packers, and I don't need to throw in any Rodgers plays or Love plays.
Don't give me that because you moved off the lock that we made last Thursday.
I'm just telling you the truth. I'm locking him up with Jordan Love. I'm locking him up with Aaron Rodgers. I'm locking it up with Scott Tolzien if they take him out of retirement.
I don't like the you and I, the lock bros, that works.
Yeah.
The Gregg and Marc duo lock does not really work very well, and the Dan and Gregg duo lock does not work.
This will be a good test for this is a show me Sunday for the lock.
I don't know if we've done it before. This Bears team, I lock more against teams than I do lock for teams, and the Packers have only won one of their last 8 games, I believe. They're 1-7 since starting 3-1. So, you could feel more comfortable about them. But I think they've solved a lot of their offensive problems. I do expect Rodgers to play. But I really was going to lock it up, Love versus the Bears, because I think the Packers have solved their offensive problems in the way that their offensive line is healthier now. They've protected pretty well. We know the running game's good. They've been run blocking better. Watson has really
Christian Watson's a player
He's
now.
added a lot.
Absolutely.
You might get Romeo Doubs back this week. And the Bears' defense was already the worst in the league. And then they lost Eddie Jackson, the best player in their secondary. They also didn't have Brisker or Kyler Gordon, their 2 rookies who are starting, have had good moments and are 2 of their better starters. So you went from one of the worst defenses in the league to even worse than that in the secondary. And I know the Packers' defense has struggled too, but I just feel like this is a nice get-right game, or it's a nice breakout game for Jordan Love. Either way, I feel good about the Packers winning.
I don't take too much in the early season encounters between some of these teams, but sustainably for Chicago on offense, the one way I see them into this is that back in week 2, they rumbled over Green Bay for 180 yards on the ground. That was only 20 yards from Justin Fields. That was their distinct, true running game. And the Packers are coming off a game where they allowed 363 yards rushing.
You know who the Bears are? The Bears are that classic late-season team, and we saw it in their last game last week at the Meadowlands. They might put up a bit of a fight early on, but if you punch them in the gut, or if you give them a shot to the jaw at some point before the first half, they're just ready to go home.
Yeah, well, they're a broken defense, although I'd say the same thing about the Packers.
But I'm saying not just that.
Games.
They're a bad team that once you let them know this is going to be a long day, they're not ready for the battle.
The Fields has been practicing, and Simeon's not. So you would think Fields would have a good chance to play, but they also could be playing reckless. It careful. But one of the reasons why I felt good locking it no matter who's playing or whatever is I just feel like they're going to be careful with him if he does play.
Yes.
They're not going to have as many designed runs, and then they're just a little punchless.
I'd argue you don't even put him into dangerous way.
Well, then I love locking against Nathan Peterman. The line is only 3 points,
lock,
though.
By the way, if Rodgers plays
Trevor
against
Simeon
a Fields
not
free
practicing because of the oblique that he played through on Sunday?
Yeah. I think he would probably would be Simeon starting. Who knows?
Can I just say one thing? You guys locking up if Rodgers plays and if Justin Fields is one half of what he is and is not used on the ground or doesn't play at all. I mean, go find a mirror on that one.
It's a 3-point spread.
It's a 3-point spread.
I don't care what the spread is. I mean, you just have to say from
it's smaller, actually, than the one we gave Nick Wesseling all those kudos for.
I don't have to be proud of your lock.
Buried Green Bay all season as a bad team that needs to float away, and now you're saying we need to find a mirror?
of 8.
I'm saying if it's Aaron Rodgers versus Trevor Simeon or something.
They've lost 7 of 8?
Yeah, the Packers. They were 3-1. Remember this season?
I think you.
So we need
exactly
to find a mirror now.
Saying. Yes,
I'm just saying. Me, I feel I've been kind of loyal to the Packers even through all the struggles here. I'm sticking with them.
To respect.
I'm loyal to football.
I struggle to respect the choice.
Marc.
Yeah.
Your pick.
All right. I am going to go. Oh, these are ugly choices.
Yeah, we're gonna roll through these.
Well, that's what happens.
Broncos at Ravens.
Okay.
At least the Ravens are in that game.
Who are you, Ravens?
Yeah, all the remaining games, by the way, including this one, the 3 remaining.
Speed it up.
Something hideous about every game, usually one team specifically.
No, that's true. Ravens really been struggling in the red zone. I think if you want to look at this and say this is actually a good test for Baltimore because Denver, if anything, their defense has been outstanding. I mean, we talked about it last week. Had they punched 18 points in their first 10 games, it would have been 9-1 because the defense has a right to be irate. I mean, we saw Mike Purcell burning off the field last week and basically going right up to Russell Wilson and saying, we don't know what he said, but just get this thing going. And then I thought it was most telling that in the background, quietly, is Nathaniel Hackett sort of just looking away and not wanting to be part of it. It's like, what's going on with the Denver Broncos in the offense? We talked about it every week. Their season on offense cannot end fast enough. I'm much more concerned with Baltimore going out here and winning a game like this where you show that on offense you can be more consistent, not blow a lead. I just think that Lamar Jackson, it's maybe a little bit too much weight around him. You're a little too weapons poor on offense. They're asking him to do so much, and it's not something that I trust that they're going to be able to take through January. I think people have said the Ravens just going to get better and better, roll through and win this division. I don't think you're winning the division, first of all. I think I much prefer.
The schedule's so easy, though.
That's fine, but
can they blow a lead against the Russell Wilson Broncos? Come on.
Okay, but we said the schedule was so easy, then they went out and lost to the Jaguars.
Okay.
So it's just like you have to go handle your own business.
There's a difference between the Jaguars and the Broncos, who are dead as butt.
Yeah, but it's good Broncos defense. So
they're not. Here's the thing, though. I've noticed a little decline here from the Broncos defense too, which makes sense. They're injured up front, and they traded away Chubb. They've been closer to average, I would say, over the last 3-4 weeks. And you just
with Baltimore's offense.
You don't need much. The Broncos' offense right now is on pace to be the lowest scoring offense since the 2000 Browns.
Man.
I mean, isn't that crazy? They're the worst offense in 20 years.
They had 246 yards last year against a Carolina team that's in the top 5 for the draft. And Russell Wilson, as we know, has struggled in so many ways this year. Bill Barnwell, friend of the show over at ESPN, had a great write-up on all the things that are wrong with Russell Wilson's season. And one thing that really jumped out of all the things to me, as a red zone passer, Russell Wilson in the past decade was one of the best in football. Year after year after year, when he was the quarterback, they found a way to score. In fact, he had a 91.9 QBR last season, which, by the way, wasn't a great season for Russell Wilson. It still was good enough to be in the top 10 in the league. In this season, his first year through 10 games of the Broncos, he's dipped from 91.9 to 6.3 QBR in the red zone. There are so many things wrong with him, but their absolute staggering inability to get it done in that area of the field, it's head-scratching.
He has 2 fewer touchdowns than Carson Wentz, who has not played since Week 6. There were those reports a couple weeks ago.
A literal glass of milk.
A glass of milk. A man just essentially no more than a glass of milk.
Whole milk.
There were those reports that Wilson is so lost that he was calling out Seahawks audibles in essentially on the field in games with the Broncos.
Can we just move on with the show one way or the other?
Seahawks Rams can be quick conversation because there's no Aaron Donald in this game. There's no Matthew Stafford in this game. Obviously, there's no Cooper Kupp or Allen Robinson. The offensive line maybe is going to start a new lineup for the 12th straight week, which is a record.
Unbelievable.
It's a perfect time for a get-right game. I think Bryce Perkins showed enough last week that I think they can start building the offense around his skill set in a way that might be tough to prepare for. They have gotten a little bit of the running game going, and the Seattle defense is concerning enough that you think Perkins might be able to move the ball a little bit, and they could be feisty if their defense shows up. I just don't know if their defense is going to be showing up that much without Aaron Donald. It did last week. You've got to give him credit for that.
We have all season to off-season to talk about this, but doesn't it make so much sense? The Rams obviously now are in a heap of trouble organizationally because the roster has thinned. They've been unsuccessful this season. They don't have draft picks. Matthew Stafford, wouldn't it make so much sense for them to trade him in the offseason at this point, recoup some draft picks and start building whatever is the next phase in this team's? And then you think about Matt Stafford back on the trade market in the offseason. There are a number of teams that he makes sense on, including mine.
Back to the Lions.
Interesting. Now that would be amazing. But
I think this is his forever home. I would expect he would retire rather than get traded.
I think retirement's hanging out there. There's just something weird going on.
I just got a vibe: retirement or a new team.
I don't think he'd want to play football again if it wasn't for McVay and in this team. And I think they'll want to keep him because it doesn't.
How about Kenneth Walker? Last 2 games, 17 yards rushing, 26. I love him as a runner. It's like, let's wake up a little bit.
Yeah, really 3 out of 4. I know this is a game they should take care of. It's out of the lock zone of course, but they need to improve their pass rush, their defense, their running game. They've gotten into some bad habits. They are not guaranteed by any means to make the NFC playoffs, so they need to go get a 7th win.
I enjoyed Geno Smith saying this week that the Seahawks are adjusting to life, going from the hunter to the hunted. The 6-5 Seahawks. Listen, they've earned it, and this is who they are now.
Well,
one of the greats.
Face Bobby
one of the
Wagner.
Titans of football.
They will face Bobby Wagner this week. Which would be a bigger deal if the Rams weren't a disaster.
I guess what he's saying is they lost as a favorite last week, and now they're a favorite again.
All right, let's close it out with Steelers at Falcons. Could be better, could be worse.
I don't hate that game.
I kind of hate it. Actually, I despise it.
Oh.
I despise it so much. Gravedigger, I'm going to need your help with it, buddy, come Sunday.
Got you.
I'm all booked up. Yeah.
I like this game. I kind of am into the
Why didn't you draft it then?
Yeah, you literally did draft it, then decided
because then
not
I
to
realized
draft
I
it,
had 3 early games, and then I was thinking about the Shook games, and it just
That's where you're getting yourself in trouble.
It got too confusing.
It's not running a good war room here.
Hey, look, Steelers over the last few weeks, Dan.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me just jumping in here.
Just go on.
Okay. Football Outsiders. You can now sort by week, which is fun.
Great. Pinch me.
Since the bye. Since the bye.
Dan is so checked out.
9th in offense, 8th in defense. And here's what I really am impressed about. We know Kenny Pickett's played better. Their running game has been consistent. They have been pushing people around in the run game. And if they can run the ball, and I think Najee Harris getting hurt might not be the worst thing. To me, Warren and Snell both have a little more juice.
Bro.
He's good too, but it doesn't matter who's back there is my main point. They're not a bad offense. I think they're a little more balanced of a team right now than the Falcons are. I like the Steelers to win.
All right, they're 6th against the run also. That's what the Falcons do. And I've started to look at the Falcons. I kind of have been a Falcons supporter, I think, quietly this whole season and going back to last year with Arthur Smith. But
big game for them.
Yeah, you take away their run game and you could just basically guarantee that Marcus Mariota, whether it's his fault or not, like that interception last week was a tipped ball, but it's like, don't we just at this point, like a cookie cutter, just expect Mariota to do something at the end of the game that basically unspools the entire operation?
They're the most consistent team in the NFL. They are the exact same team every week.
Yep.
Actually, you say, if you can stop the run. No one stops the run. They ran all over even Washington. They're a truly great running team. We know what Mariota is, and their defense is 31st in the league in points per drive given up. At no point have they really shown life defensively. They're the exact same team every week.
I fully put that loss, and that was a season-crushing loss potentially for Atlanta. Just imagine if they win that game, where they are and the way the NFC South and the Bucs, the pressure on the Bucs. Why are you asking Marcus Mariota to make a game-winning throw in that spot?
Why were they not running the ball there? There was plenty of time.
Patterson what did Jonathan Vilma say, Justin Gravedigger? What did Vilma say about Cordarrelle Patterson near the goal line?
What did he say?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, he said,
tough.
Jesus Christ, because he's an absolute terror that nobody wants to tackle. Why are you not giving him 3 times inside the 5? He's going to score. He's going to score. Instead, you ask Mariota to make a big play. The guy can't make a big play to save his life, which is why he won't be their quarterback next year. It got me so mad watching that. That's it. I have nothing else to say.
They can rebound,
Steelers
though.
are getting better.
If Falcons win this game,
Pickett.
they could be tied for first, on Monday night if the Bucs lose.
I'm way more intrigued by a Kenny Pickett than, say, Taylor Heineke, just because I like watching a rookie quarterback starting to develop and how that trajectory goes.
Well, and he's also, I think, Heineke's a fill-in, but Pickett's in there with other young players who are growing around him. Like the Pickens thing, I think, is a huge development for them. And what team do you trust to develop wide receivers more than Pittsburgh?
Hey, Gravedigger, Marcus Mariota, one more stat on him. He has started every game this year
He has.
for the Falcons?
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, so how much that means he needs to start 6 more, and he starts all 17 games for the 2022 Falcons?
That's correct.
All right. Do you have something to play for us?
Yes.
That's one of the things I think that it was a little under the radar. He's making around the same as Teddy is in Miami. He's not making a real.
If Mariota starts 17 games, I will do one of these shows topless. Like he is not. That's
okay,
not,
write that down. Write it down. Write it down.
Desmond Ridder, it's time to take a look.
Yeah, you need to start rooting against the Falcons because I don't think they're making a change if they keep winning. If they win this game, you're in deep trouble.
No, I think he's got to start wailing on his chest and on some buys and tries because
that's too.
Desmond Ridder ain't playing.
Right. Both of those things can be happening at the same time. Will need to be.
All right, good stuff. Every game that we just previewed, we will review on Sunday with expert precision. Heed the call.